This video is in our supply and demand series. By the end of this video, you'll be able to determine whether a market demonstrates a surplus or a shortage, or if it's in equilibrium. Using a supply and demand graph, we'll also use schedules and equations to do that. The graphs, by the way, not going away. Definitely work on this and reach out if you have any questions. There's a lot to cover here, so make sure you're buckled up. Equilibrium is where supply and demand intersect, both metaphorically and literally. We'll see that later on. Equilibrium is the price and quantity combination. We call it P star and Q star, where supply equals demand. So it's the price where quantity demanded is equal to quantity supplied. That's the only price based on most of the conditions that we've set up for our supply and demand functions, where quantity supplied in a market equals the quantity demanded. That's due to an assumption of something that we call monotonicity. Please don't write that down. Don't worry about monotonicity. Please don't. The equilibrium quantity is the quantity both supplied and demanded at the equilibrium price. So, have you ever taken a physics class? Equilibrium is where all forces are balanced. So think of quantity demanded as goods pulled out of the market, and think of quantity supplied as goods pushed into the market. If we're at too high a price, too many goods are pushed in. If we're at too low a price, too many goods are pulled out. And if we're at this Goldilocks price, this just right price, the forces, quantity demanded and quantity supplied, are balanced. They're equal to each other, and we end up with a zero net change in the amount of goods left in the market. Supply, remember, is your seller's production and profit. Demand is buyer's preferences. Together, they're going to determine the price and quantity that'll be bought and sold in the market. What happens if we're not at this Goldilocks price? By the way, our equilibrium here is going to be, our equilibrium price is 15, our equilibrium quantity is 40. The answer to this is going to be we're either going to have a surplus or a shortage. A surplus, or excess supply, is going to happen when the quantity demanded is less than the quantity supplied. So it's at a price above equilibrium. For example, at a price of 20, quantity demanded is 20, but quantity supplied looks like it's 50. So since 50 is greater than 20, we have a surplus. A shortage, or what we call excess demand, occurs where the quantity demanded is greater than the quantity supplied. This is going to occur at prices below the equilibrium. So remember, our equilibrium price was 15. So if we have a price of 10 here, our quantity supplied is about 30, but our quantity demanded is going to be 60. So our quantity demanded here is greater than our quantity supplied. Generally, anytime we have a price that's below the equilibrium level, that's going to put upward pressure on prices. Anytime we're above the equilibrium level, that's going to put downward pressure on prices. And so markets want to move to equilibrium. They want to balance things out. Equilibrium is important to create a balanced market, but more importantly, it's important to create an efficient market. Efficiency is where we have the optimal amount of goods produced, so there's less waste. But in the supply and demand model, you can think of it slightly differently. The economy is getting as much benefit as possible from its resources, and all possible gains from trade have been achieved. A more general definition of equilibrium you might remember from maybe your micro course is that no one can be made better off without harming someone else. And if the market's in equilibrium, this is true, at least as far as profit and consumer surplus goes. So there are three ways to find an equilibrium. The first is to draw a graph. Look for the intersection point. There it is. So we see that at this graph, our equilibrium price is 15. Drop that point down. Our equilibrium quantity is 40. Yay! Second way to find an equilibrium. We can look at the supply and demand schedules. Find the point where quantity supplied equals quantity demanded. Let's see. 10 and 100, no. 20 and 80, no. 30 and 60, no. 40 and 40, yes! There it is. All right. So here, finding equilibrium this way, our equilibrium price is 15. Our equilibrium quantity is 40. Oh, that's the same number. Yay! Finally, you can, if you have the equations, solve the system of equations. You guys know that these are equations that apply to these graphs because you've been graphing them for like the past 8 mini lectures. So hopefully you recognize these by this point. So our quantity demanded is 100 minus 4p. Our quantity supplied is 2p plus 10. So we can just solve that system of equations. 100 minus 4p, that's our quantity demanded, is equal to our quantity supplied, that's 2p plus 10. Let's go ahead and add 4p to both sides. So we have 100 equals 6p plus 10. Subtract 10 from both sides. 90 equals 6p. So p is equal to 15. Oh, hey, weird. So we know that our equilibrium price is 15. Then go ahead and plug that price into either equation. Plus 10, that's 30, plus 10, that's 40. So we know our equilibrium quantity is 40. That's the same number. Yay! You'd get the same number even if you plugged it into the demand equation. By the way, we did in an earlier version. Yeah. So now try it. In the previous slides, you made and graphed the schedules for these two equations. Now find equilibrium using the method of your choice. I'm going to find the equilibrium by solving the equations. Quantity demanded is 50 minus 2p. Quantity supplied is 4p minus 10. So let's go ahead and set 4p minus 10 equal to 50 minus 2p. Add 2p to both sides. So we get 6p minus 10 equal to 50. Add 10 to both sides. We get 6p equal to 60, or p equal to 10. So let's store this over here. P star equals 10. And then let's go ahead and plug 10 for p. 4 times 10 minus 10. 40 minus 10 equals 30. That's going to be our Q star. We can plug that into the other equation too, just to be sure. 50 minus 2 times 10 is 50 minus 20. That's also 30. Yay! So, quick review. What are equilibrium price and quantity? You can identify them in a market. What are surpluses and shortages? How do they cause the price to move toward equilibrium? And how can you create a graph that illustrates equilibrium price and quantity?